The mystery of adultery is solved when the daughter accidentally discovers her mother with a Tajik. But the most surprising thing is not who she chose, but the most shocking mystery behind this adultery. Ready to find out what it is? Get ready for an amazing wife cheating story that will change all your ideas about love and betrayal. I thought long and hard about whether or not to send it to you. I had already sent it to a couple of bloggers, but they refused to publish it, saying there were too few details. And if I let them add a few spicy details to my confession, they would agree. Otherwise, no one would read or listen to it, and they need the ratings. What happened to me and my family? Sort of quarrels do not make up, because we lived with his wife of 18 years. 18 is in a formal marriage, and 7 years of cohabitation before marriage. During cohabitation, we had a daughter, and during marriage, my wife gave me a son. Because of all the years, we had almost no major scandals at the very beginning of our life together, when figuring out the status of her and my parents, and that was it. There were petty squabbles, of course, but we learned to give in to each other. I'm 50 now, my wife is 47. I will not tell you how we lived before. I will only say that we were not poor, even good. We had our own place, a summer cottage, a car, a garage, my wife's apartment, which we rented. It all started when my wife decided to learn driving license. Of course, I was very surprised because I myself have repeatedly offered her to go to school, but she always refused, saying that she was scared and that it was enough that I drove her. Well, she wanted to. Why not? She took the course, passed. I bought my wife flowers and a present, ordered a table in a cafe with light snacks and a chilled bottle of Martini Bianco. My wife drank only this wine or a good vodka. Then she expressed a desire to have her own car. And not something like Honda or Kia, but she wanted none other than a Mercedes B200. Here, I was a little bit hooked. Of course, I have Letta Largus. I thought she would ask even Priora. The more so money we did not have. No arguments could not change her mind. Okay, I think we live once. Let it be a good car. In one of the salons, we chose a car with the necessary configuration for her. We took out a credit there. I began to notice that sometimes, when leaving home, my wife spent longer than usual getting all her clothes and makeup on, and then takes a long and meticulous look at herself in the mirror. Of course, I wondered where she was so dressed up, to which she replied that she would go shopping with friends and some cafe to look into. In addition, I began to ignore in terms of joint trips to the cinema or a restaurant. Of course, I was not thrilled that the same finds everywhere alone, because before we tried to go together, an even more expensive car to the same. Only the children were happy that my mother was a representative lady. The children had enough of their own concerns, each with his own family. In general, Sang moved from Moscow to Peter to Xenia. I noticed that if before the money was in abundance, to make it bigger, but now they were catastrophically short. My wife was spending not only her own money, but also money from the overall family budget. We had a family bank card, which we topped up after we received our paychecks. I noticed that my wife's deposits stopped coming in, even though the credit was in my name. When I asked what happened, she said that the tenants had moved out of her apartment and she was renovating it. At home, my wife practically stopped cooking, and I had to do it. She cooked, but she cleaned and did laundry too, and we used to do everything together. In addition, she began to stay at work late, explaining it by the fact that it was necessary to work off the loan, but the money from this did not become more and more insufficient. And she often stopped picking up the phone when I called her. I tried to get her to talk. Of course, it did not work. My daughter arrived unexpectedly with her husband. Well, caught a moment when her husband went out for a smoke. I do not smoke and have never smoked. My daughter told me that a week ago she had seen her mother in her car with some young man, obviously not Russian. And then, once I called her, she heard a man's voice, and the voice was not mine at all. And when I tried to talk to her again, with my wife, but again, it did not work, she again refused. Then I became suspicious, and I asked her directly if you have someone, to which my wife looked at me like a lunatic, asking if I had lost my mind in my old age, so she has not spoken to me since the beginning of our life together. Then my wife got a new phone, but disappeared the next day. I stopped bringing money to the joint bank card, and for the first time in so many years we had a scandal. When the daughter arrived, she told me that just an hour ago, she went to an apartment that belonged to her wife, her mother. There was a new door, and the lock was new. The daughter started ringing the doorbell. A young Uzbek or a Tajik opened it. He tried not to let her in, but the daughter said that the apartment belonged to her mother, and if he did not let her in, she would call the police, and most importantly, she found her mother at home in a short satin silk robe. At the question of what was going on, the wife, that is, my mother, could not find anything cleverer to say than that she had come to check on the contents of the apartment. And here, as on a sin, also the plumber should come. So she waited for him, but for some reason immediately hurried home, comparing everything with the words of his wife. She should be now with her friends in the store or cafe. I called her. Her phone was off. About 3 hours later, she arrived. We were waiting for her and her daughter. My wife came into our kitchen, silently took out her favorite Bianca from the fridge, poured herself a flute, drained it completely, and said, "Think what you want, understand what you want, but I am leaving you. I fell in love with another man, and he loved me. I am leaving for him." The daughter asked him if it was the same guy who was in her apartment today. It turned out that this lodger had been living there for 2 years. There was a long family conversation. The daughter tried to talk sense into her mother, but it was no use. The wife silently, quietly let down a tear, sometimes nodding or sighing, and that was all. That same night, the wife left. As it turned out later, she met her lover near a large supermarket. He worked there as a valet. She needed a car to get better acquainted. Why so difficult? I can't explain. Really, everything was told to me by her close friend, who tried to reason with her. After a month, they had their first relationship, right in the car, and after another month, the wife kicked out the lodgers and her lover moved in. The wife immediately started supporting him. And yes, she did start working more, but she invested all the money in his lover. The most interesting thing, she even managed to register him in her apartment. But this already happened after the divorce. We divorced. Yes, the wife did not demand the division of property, which by Moscow standards is incredible. Even my lawyer was completely perplexed, stating after the court that such a thing in his 15-year practice for the first time. She took only a car. In fact, in our marriage together, we only pressed the garage and 2 cars. I inherited the cottage and apartment from parents, but if you consider the current prices, the garage that we had could pull on a room in the communal apartment. A year has passed since then, and what I find out, from the very best friend of her, by the way, my wife's lover, dragged his motherland 2 more brothers and an uncle. And they now live as a Tabor and Peter. But this is not the limit. He still wants to drag the wife of one of the brothers, who has 3 children. That my ex-wife realized too late that she was just used. Money is tight. My uncle and one of my brothers don't work. The car was sold. She hinted that she didn't even mind going back, but her pride won't let her do it. And knowing me, she understands that she has no way back. Now she is trying to get her lover out of her own mother's apartment and kick out all of his relatives. I don't know if it will work. Do you think, dear listeners? It's time for some awesome stories from yours truly. Announcer. You know, the topic in cheating is one of the main reasons why people break up and families fall apart. Everyone knows that, right? Cheating, as men, such women, there are about 50-50ths. Not all. Of course, there are relationships where true love reigns and cheating is impossible in principle. But now, we will not touch the reasons and dig into all these dirty affairs. Now we will rather talk about why one should not forgive a woman's adultery and what it entails in general. What could be the consequence otherwise? This, by the way, applies to today's story, because the author, as far as I can see, is not inclined, and rightly so, and now I will explain why. First, by forgiving and cheating a man, He will never again be valuable to a woman, to cheating, actually. Such a man, he is doomed to fall. Here to fall literally into the abyss in the eyes of that very woman, girl, wife, whatever, to whom he has forgiven the treason, because he has shown weakness and let her know that he can be treated that way. Which means it's okay to disrespect him and screw over all his principles, which in general, as we can see, don't exist. Second, people never change. No, of course there are people who are capable of changing and changing their lives. That's understandable. Many of us are like that. Many have examples among close acquaintances, friends, and so on. But it takes tremendous effort, and most importantly, desire. But those who have cheated once can never make it up to them, and as a rule do not change. If it happened once, it will happen again. It's only a matter of time, and in today's story, you could say the same thing. If she cheated once here, if he forgave her, then another, who, valet, janitor, security guard, I don't know, director of some company would show up again, but he would. Do you understand? Third, feminine adultery is unnatural. In general, and now you'll see why here thoughts a little deeper. A woman who is able to cheat, she goes against her nature and her femininity. After all, a woman is first of all devotion, the ability to maintain a relationship, to maintain a climate, a positive climate in a relationship, but in no way to destroy it. And the more sexual partners a woman has had in her life, the less feminine energy remains in her, unfortunately. Since a woman is by nature created to give energy, love, care, and the like. Fourth, relationships will never be the same. It is an axiom of fact, because when a woman cheats, a man loses such an important component in a relationship, such as an emotional connection with his woman. In fact, after cheating, she is no longer his woman, and he is not her man, of course. That emotional connection is already severed and cannot be restored. That's a fact, too. It is very important for a man to feel his worth and the value of the woman who is around him. After all, every man is inherently tough and possessive, straight up tough, who is not willing to share with anyone. Here are men, plus all night, please in the comments for me to realize that, man, I'm not the only one who thinks this way. And it's true. Fifth, and actually, one last thing. By forgiving cheating, a man takes away the opportunity for a happy future. He denigrates it and basically removes it. By living the rest of his life with a betrayer, a man is digging a hole for himself. We've heard that more than once, and in no story, right? Everyone remembers. And the longer he stays with the cheater, the deeper the hole gets, from which it is unlikely to get out later. Instead, you have to build a new life, a new happiness, because there are a lot of good and free women around who can't be cheated on. And such stories we have on the channel too. And what do you think about it in general, I wonder? Have you had cases of betrayal of loved ones, and how you acted in such cases, in these difficult, but unfortunately, not uncommon life situations? Tell me your stories. It will be very interesting to read. We will discuss. And now move on to the second story. A chance meeting with a friend led to the discovery of his wife's betrayal. The question arose of reconciliation or revenge. Get ready for an amazing adultery story that will turn your idea of fidelity and forgiveness upside down. I had a friend, Michael. We had been friends since childhood. We studied at the same school, and then at the same institute. After graduation, Michael disappeared. You could say he vanished into thin air. And most interestingly, he didn't leave any address or phone number for his parents either. But he kept sending them money, with little messages to say that he was doing well, that he was working, and that no one needed to worry about him. Judging by the receipts, the remittances came from the north. I hadn't seen him in almost 5 years. During that time, I got married, and my son was born. My wife and I met by chance, and in a minibus. I just brazenly walked up to her and offered to go to the next stop, find some cafe, and drink coffee. And so we met. And now, after 5 years, Michael appeared, like a snowball on his head. He came to my place at the second hour of the night, a little tipsy, of course, and brought champagne and some expensive Scotch whiskey, a whole liter bottle. For my wife, a huge bouquet of roses, and for my son, a huge toy car. Fortunately, it was Friday, already Saturday. My wife and I had to lay the table. We drank to the meeting, talked all night about life. Mishka told me where and how he worked, and other stuff. Anyway, after that, Mishka came to see us from time to time. It is true that he never came without me, but I began to notice more and more often that my wife constantly mentions Michael in our conversations. He is everything. He is something else. He has this. He has something else. And she herself has sometimes become absent-minded, used to sit and think about something, but smiling. As they say, she could not bear the soul of a poet. I asked her directly if it was a love affair between you and Mishka. To which my wife replied that I am a fool, that Mishka is my friend, and she a priori cannot have anything with him. I believed her, though a worm of doubt settled in my heart. 6 months passed, and somehow Mishka called me and said we had to meet and have a serious talk. We agreed to see each other in a day. The conversation turned out to be intense. I learned from Mishka that my wife had been pregnant for a month, and it was not clear which one of us was pregnant. Of course, he apologized for the deception, for the betrayal, for the lies. Told me that he had fallen in love with my wife at first sight when he first showed up at our place after a long absence. He told me how he sent his wife flowers at work, how at first she ignored him, but then she started to answer his notes through the same courier, by the way, who brought flowers, and then she sent him her phone number. Michael rented an apartment, especially for meetings, right next to the office where his wife worked, and they often met there during their lunch breaks. Of course, they also met there after work, and if they had some free time. But the most interesting thing was why Michael had not told his wife about our meeting, had not even warned her, even though they had agreed that there was no point in hiding everything. I came home, silent over dinner. I decided to ask my wife again if she was in a relationship with Michael. She seemed to burst. 1 minute she was smiling, and then she became a mega slut. I heard all kinds of things in my address. She called me names, stating at the end that I was the last bastard, suspecting her of cheating and not knowing that she was pregnant and we were going to have a baby. And of course, hysterical, crocodile tears with lamentations that here, she would do anything for me, and I would. To be honest, such a barrage of insults to me at first threw me into shock, but I coped. I did not scandalize. I asked a question in a calm, soft, but a firm voice. She was sure that the child is mine, and immediately got a slap in the face. Then I just told her that I met with Michael and the conversation with him, told her the very subject, what we talked about. Now my wife was already in shock. She was silent for a couple of minutes, and then began to ask for forgiveness. After that conversation, I mean the wife and Michael, she had time to realize that she didn't want to be with him, that she loved me. She wanted to tell Misha that it was over, but he was also changing her mind. When asked why she lied to me, she said that she thought she had fallen in love with my friend. But now she realized that she had succumbed to fleeting and unserious feelings, that she was very sorry and regretful, that she hoped that I would not divorce her, that she loved me and was ready for anything. I told her that I didn't want her sacrifice, that I couldn't trust her anymore, and that after the divorce, I wanted to see our son whenever I wanted. And we would talk about the unborn child after the DNA test. I left the same day, then came by occasionally, her apartment picking up her things little by little. We weren't divorced until a year later, only after the baby was born, by the way, a girl. The DNA test, I'll tell you. Yes, it showed that the girl was not mine. Now my wife and Michael live together, but they say that they do not live well. They often quarrel, and he sometimes leaves home. My son told me, and a mutual friend told me. My wife never denies me communication and meetings with my son. Sometimes I buy gifts for the girl. She is not guilty of anything. My wife sometimes calls and charges, but we talk only about my son or she needs help with something. We do not get to talk about life. And I don't really want to talk about it myself. There were hints, of course, they would try it first, but I pretended to be a fool, pretending that I did not understand what the ex is talking about at all. We don't talk to Misha anymore. We greet each other dryly when we meet, and we don't say another word to each other. Dear listeners, I would like to add comments on my own behalf. I chose this story precisely because through it we can see how strong and Nordic a man's character can be. Frankly speaking, I do not understand him at all, although I am a supporter of peaceful resolution of various kinds of conflicts. But in his place, I would not stand, especially his childhood friend, his wife, with whom you have a child. So what if you fell in love? You should have said so right away. Yes, indeed, it happens in life. There are different things, but you should always be honest. First of all, before yourself, and not go for treason. A deal with the conscience, but just say it straight out. Yes, I choose another person. We should not be together anymore. But as you can see, life is very different. Friends, what do you think of this story? Please share your opinions in the comments. And the best thanks for my work for you will be the likes and subscriptions to the channel. It helps me motivate myself and not to stop recording videos every day for you. See you in the next video tomorrow. See you soon.